Welcome to IBFD's Tax Takes. I'm your host, Stuart Gibson, Chief Editor, Global News and US at IBFD. Our guest today is Juliane Kokott, who for nearly 20 years has served as an Advocate General at the Court of Justice of the European Union. Welcome, Juliane. Thank you for sharing your time and insights with us today.
Hello, welcome.
Let's start with the basics. I'm sure the tax professionals in Europe know all about the court and your role as one of the 11 current advocates general. But for the benefit of our global audience, including me, could you please briefly describe what it is you do on the court as advocate general?
The advocates general are modeled upon the French rapporteur public, and that catches our function very well. We are somewhat like a reporting judge, but our vote is public, and therefore it is longer. It is not provisional, so we have a lot of footnotes, and we really think about what we write, and then it's published. And I think that helps to make the case law more transparent, because the public knows how the court might decide, and they know at the same time what was before the court, because sometimes the court does not put every argument into its judgment, but people, if they read the conclusions, the opinion, they know that at least the court thought about this argument.
Somebody suggested to me that it was similar to, in our US court system, what we call an amicus curiae, or a friend of the court.
No, not like it's like a reporting judge, because the amicus curiae is outside the court, whereas the advocates general are members of the court with the same status as the judges.
I see. So we've seen a lot of changes in international and European tax law over the last 20 years. What do you see as the greatest trends in European tax law since you joined the court?
I think there has been kind of change of paradigm. When I joined the court in 2003, the idea was present in the community that the court would always interpret the basic freedoms more broad, and so that at the end, that was a fear, the companies could choose where they pay their taxes and where they use their losses. That was before Marks and Spencer. And I think the Marks and Spencer decision is a kind of compromise, because it said in principle, the states must not be forced to use losses which have arisen in other tax jurisdictions, except where those losses are final. Yeah. And so it's a compromise decision. And so there have been justifications for limiting the basic freedoms, which have been worked out by the court from Marks and Spencer on. And then more recently, I think it's the rise of the concept of abuse and fight against abuse. But this is also reflected in the legislation. It's not only the court, because we have, the earlier legislation on taxes in the European Union was meant to eliminate obstacles to free flow of goods and services, obstacles mainly by double taxation. These days, the new legislation is to help the states to protect their tax base and their tax revenue.
That's a fairly good summary of the direction that we've seen on the international stage as well, where states are trying to protect their tax base. So that moves us right into what the OECD has been doing for the last 10 years of fighting base erosion and profit shifting. And now the hottest topic has to do with the recommendations on reallocation of taxing rights and adopting a global minimum tax. And we've seen this play out in Europe, as much of the discussion has played out in the context of the unanimity requirement under EU law. And I'm not going to ask you to opine on how this ought to come out, because that would not be right. But could you talk to us about the importance of the unanimity concept when it comes to these kinds of proposals that transform European law across the continent?
In principle, it's more a question to the legislator. But the unanimity principle has advantages and disadvantages. if states adopt something unanimously, they should observe it and should be comfortable with it. That's an advantage. A disadvantage is that I think the idea is that you can do everything unanimously. It doesn't matter so much whether the legal basis is there or no, unless it's unanimous. That's a tendency. I do not say that the legal basis is completely unimportant, but there's a tendency to be more generous. Yeah.
So it has its pluses and its minuses, and as I said, we're seeing that play out in the debate that's currently going on about whether the EU will adopt a global minimum tax. And we have news about it today, even from the Italians that say no, we have to work around Hungary's veto. So let's turn to a less controversial topic than base erosion and profit shifting and global minimum tax. So we at IBFD welcome your strong support for promoting the involvement of women in the international tax community. And our viewers are interested in your views about how we can continue to work together to encourage and promote the participation of women in research roles and in leadership roles, both within Europe and internationally.
Mm-hmm. I think with regard to leadership roles, one really has to make an effort to find the woman, because often people would say, we would like so much to have a woman, but there is none, and usually it's not true. You have to look to the women organization of the IFA. There are a lot of women. One just has to look around, yeah, with open eyes, and then you find them. And with research, just encourage and maybe to show them role models, because I don't know whether this still plays a role, that some women may think that it's not compatible with the family. I don't know. I think it's perfectly compatible. Yeah.
I appreciate your busting a couple of these myths about this notion that there are not qualified women to take on leadership roles, or somehow working in a university on research, tax research, interferes with any tax professional's private life. I've been a tax professional for over 40 years, and you make the time and you prioritize your life. I think I agree with you that these are excuses, and we need to find positive ways. I just want to share one thing, and I know I said I wouldn't do most of the talking, but one of the things that I think can really help is to encourage women to seek sponsors instead of mentors. Mentors give advice, sponsors promote.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can find ways to sponsor women to leadership roles and to research and academia within the international tax world, I think that will help grow that base as well. And again, to dispel this complete utter nonsense that we don't have enough women in international tax to take on leadership or research roles. And I'm sorry for talking so much, but I felt that had to be said. But we truly appreciate everything you are doing and have done within IFA and within the EU to help promote the involvement of women in leadership and in academia. So I hate to cut this short. I really like talking to you. But our guest today has been Juliane Kokott, Advocate General at the Court of Justice of the European Union. And I want to thank you so much for your time, and on behalf of our viewers here at IBFD, for sharing your insights on the court, on tax trends, on the role of women. And thank you so much.
It's a pleasure of working with the IBFD. I have, as you might know, big projects with the IBFD. We are working on this book on taxpayers' rights, and the second volume, it's taxpayers in international law, with a lot of women involved from all over the world. And maybe 8% or lots of them come from IBFD, which makes it possible to work together with women and men from Japan, from South America, from everywhere. And so it's really very, very good to have this IBFD. I couldn't do all this international research. I couldn't do all this research on international tax law without all those contacts of the IBFD, and Pasquale Pistone helps a lot. We are a good team. Thanks to the IBFD.
Well, thank you so much for that unsolicited plug, and I know Pasquale will appreciate watching the interview because you and he are co-authors on this new book. So again, I want to thank you for joining us and for sharing your views. I know you're very, very busy on the court and with your teaching duties. So thank you again, and look for this interview to air soon.
Okay, thank you.